Sonic's the name, speed's my game. You're too slow. Come on, step it up. Too easy. Piece of cake! Ha! Hey, we should do this again sometime.
Now I'll show you!
Welcome to Bad Weapon Academy, where we take a look at the worst weapons TF2 has to offer, and I show you how to best utilize them. Today we're going to be looking at what may be the biggest fallen giant we're going to take a look at in this series, the Babyface's Blaster. A few years ago, I would have gotten crucified by the Church of Skunts for even implying the blaster was a bad weapon. But these days, it's basically universally agreed upon that it's useless. I don't think I can put how punishing this weapon is any better than this. Think of every gun in the game. Now imagine they're all the Natasha. Yeah, that sounds like it fucking sucks, right? And it does. The way this gun used to roll is that you'd gain a speed boost by hitting your enemies, but if you double jumped, you lost
a quarter of it.
This came at the cost of damage and then clip size after the Two Cities update. Still though, this was a mainstay for scout mains for ages, and it was hard to get into a pub without seeing one. But lately, it's more surprising to see one at all. And to understand why, we have to look at the stats. By dealing damage to your enemies, you gain a significant speed boost. Normally, Scout moves at 133% movement speed, about 400 hammer units a second. But if you fill your boost meter completely, you now move at 173% speed, or 520 hammer units a second. You fill it entirely by doing 100 damage, which isn't too hard when you're as mobile as a scout, but there are drawbacks, as with most weapons. For starters, you start off 10% slower, about 120% speed or 360 hammer units a second. What this means is that this is a sort of snowball weapon, kind of like the Airstrike or the Eyelander. You start off weaker than you normally would be, but by getting in there and killing people, you manage to increase your effectiveness. It's worth mentioning though that your lower base speed will actually soft buff your enemy spies, as if your teammates see you walking around slower than normal with a baby face, they'll think that's just the way it is and be less suspicious, so be mindful of that. You'll also be spy checked regularly, which can be kind of annoying. Speaking of spies, you also don't get boost from disguise spies, which is a real pain in the ass, especially considering how often you run into spies as an observant scout. To mitigate how hard you're going to be to damage since you're going at Sonic the Hedgehog speeds, you also lose most of your boost upon double jumping, 75% of it. This isn't great, but it's a fair trade-off. You lose vertical mobility in exchange for highly increased horizontal mobility. And even then, thanks to your boosted momentum, there's jumps you couldn't normally make with one jump that are now accessible to you, especially if you use the winger. So in a lot of situations, it isn't that big a hindrance. However, more often than not, I find myself accidentally double jumping when I was really just sliding off an edge or incline and then accidentally jumping in midair, making me lose a lot of my boost. I like the option to double jump as a last ditch effort when you know running alone isn't going to cut it, or when you need the extra jump during your period of having no boost. But at the same time, situations like this make the mechanic fairly annoying. You also have a reduced clip size, and look, I know you're going to give me shit in the comments for calling it a clip like you did last episode, but that's what it says on the stats, so that's what I'm going with, okay? Anyway, 4 shots instead of 6. Again, this is fair. Scout is already great at being fast and doing lots of damage, so if you're going to make him really good at one of those, it's okay to make him worse at the other, at least in sustained fights. This is a run-in, do damage, get out quick kind of gun. Alright, this seems like a decently balanced side grade. Let's wrap things up in boost reduced on hit. These 4 words do not accurately describe how punishing this is. This factor alone makes this weapon due for an episode, because it is as painful as eating your own fingers. This was a mechanic introduced after it was discovered that, when at full boost, the Scout would actually outrun his own hitbox, making him notoriously difficult to hit. So rather than simply fixing that issue, they did this. 25 damage. That's it. That is all it takes to bring a boost meter from 100 to 0. That's chip damage to some classes. That's 2 shots from the pistol at mid-range, 3 shotgun pellets, the very edge of a soldier's rocket, a shot from the fucking Latranger, a butter knife, and Scout's stock melee can bring you down to nothing. Even fall damage will do this. The thing you literally can't stop from happening unless you double jump. That thing that also massively reduces your boost. So it's a choice of how you want to lose your boost there. All you seem to do with this gun is lose your boost. Once that happens, it's really easy for you to die. And it's kind of difficult to even get that 100 damage in the first place because you're a close range class. You're meant to be getting in close to enemies to do big damage, but with a small health pool and not so great speed, that gets a lot harder. So maybe you can run in and do 100 damage, but even if you do and survive, if you take damage in the fight, it'll knock it straight back down. And you'll probably take damage from their teammates as you try to escape, or your own target as they're dying. This happens so fucking often. Some of the comments in the classic video mentioned that in TFC, if you shot your enemies in the legs with a sniper rifle, it would slow them down. This is kind of like that mechanic, except worse because it's everything in the game and it doesn't even have to be aiming for you. Splash damage, miniguns, mini sentries, regular sentries, flamethrowers, the fucking scorch shit, as if I needed another reason to hate the fucking scorch shit. Or pyros in general, I guess. Using this gun is like walking on eggshells that kill you. So what the hell can we even do about it? It makes you slower and weaker than Base Scout, and the only upside can be taken away with a stray flare or splash damage. If only there was a way we could do a solid amount of damage at long range so we could get our charge without risk. Wait a second. That's right, the Flying Guillotine pairs extremely well with the blaster. This is another situation like the Brass Beast episode where the secondary really makes the set. Just by hitting your enemy once, the cleaver will do 50 damage flat, no fall off, and it also does bleed damage, 40 total over time. And by the time it's done, assuming you've hit someone from a range beyond point blank, it'll be ready to throw again, and you'll have almost all of your boost. At that point, it's a simple matter of running in with your new speed and doing damage, all while being much harder to hit. It's also a fantastic fallback tool, since the instant boost it gives you while running away and the boost over time it gives you can help give you the edge you need to escape a bad situation. However, it's not enough to protect you from fire damage. That'll still win out over the boost you're getting from the bleed. And let's not forget, you have 2 weapons to help you with this. The Rap Assassin not only helps you complete the holy meter trinity, it also works as a backup long-range damage and bleed tool for if you miss your cleaver. This set highly encourages you to play as a long-range pesterer to begin with. You might just be pissing off your enemies more than killing them, but what I've found is that combining these weapons that on their own aren't the best in Scout's lineup can actually be surprisingly fun when you don't want to rip your hair out doing it. Now, these don't completely negate the downsides of the gun. You will still take splash damage and chip damage, but what they do is give you an out for when that does happen. With the pistols, you'd be chipping away at the enemy, not doing enough damage in the time you need to get away or get closer, but with the cleaver, the burst damage effect it has is actually the perfect solution to the blaster's biggest problem. Although it does warrant mentioning, the pocket pistol's extra firing speed and healing on hit does actually help as far as burst damage and getting lost health back goes. Wow, weapons in a set actually have synergy, who would have guessed? As far as the Rap Assassin goes, it's worth mentioning that this weapon will sometimes not function properly, and launching the ball in certain locations like some staircases will cause it to shatter and damage you. So if you don't know where these bad spots are, it could actually be detrimental. It's best to use it in more open areas to mitigate this risk somewhat, unless that open area is all of bad water last. Once you're running around at the speed of sound, it can actually be kind of tricky to hit your shots because you're not going to be used to the speed boost. This is one of the harder aspects of the gun to get used to. but at the very least, this is a skill ceiling issue rather than an issue with mechanics. Really, that's the whole story with this set. It's easy to understand, but hard to learn and master. Hitting your cleaver isn't always easy, but it recharges so quickly that you're able to get your practice in a lot of matches, and you have to be really good at dodging without relying on your double jump, or else you're just gonna die. This setup encourages you to pick your fights more carefully, and keep at a medium distance. You pepper enemies with chip damage and toss the occasional cleaver or rap assassin ball, so you can really make the most out of your speed boost since you're even further out of the enemy's range. And then you run in close for the kill at the opportune moment. It's a gun that really encourages you to utilize one of Scout's most effective gameplay tactics: aggression. Not recklessness, but aggression. If you use it right, you get into this kind of rhythm where it doesn't matter if you lose your boost, since you run in, do a lot of damage, get it back, and run away to live another day. It teaches you how to be careful, but still the classic aggressive duck scout. Your attitude shouldn't be, "Aw geez, do I really want to go in there? It's scary." It should be, "Fuck it, I know I've got this guy, let's go ruin his day." Think about it kinda like Bloodborne. That game has a mechanic where if you take damage, if you're fast enough, you can get your health back by doing more damage. The same concept applies to your boost. In bad situations, you're forced to commit to fights more often, and once you win them, you'll usually have a means of a clean getaway. And even if someone decides to start shooting at you as you run away, you can throw the cleaver or rap assassin ball to get some boost back. They're useful for more than just building your boost from zero. If you maintain a proper level of aggression, you can get your boost back in one clean meat shot on an enemy that has no chance of beating you, and go to places they don't expect you to be at all. By utilizing flank routes, you can be a speedy terror that any class should be scared of. Even other scouts will have no chance of catching you. Pyros will have to ambush you or spam the hell out of the scorch shit to even try and light you on fire, and you'll be faster than the soldier's rockets can even move. Your biggest concern will be engineers, but if you know where they are and avoid them properly, you're set to cause chaos at the speed of sound. Keep in mind, this isn't the most effective way to play Scout, not even close. Stock scattergun, pistol, and basher is always going to be the competitive meta, but this set is just a lot of fun to use depending on your map of choice. Like if you're playing a really small, choke-heavy map, don't even bother. You will kill yourself before you have fun with this gun. But in any other situation, it's more fun than you'd expect, and it might just give you that little taste of the good old days. The Babyface's blaster has surprised me by how not trash it is, but let's make it a little less trash. That speed drop has got to be more forgiving. I say somewhere in the 65 to 75 damage range should be enough to drop you from 100 to 0. You could even compensate for this by making the boost take slightly more damage to get to 100, like maybe 150, 175. I think this is the simplest way to make the Babyface more usable in a mainstream way without making it too overpowered. The boost drop on hit isn't a bad concept on paper, it's just way too crippling in its current form. Also, patch the Scout being able to outrun his hitbox and let me festivize it, and I think you have a weapon that will get people buying Stranges and Killstreak kits off the market again. I'm glad we had an episode where we could actually talk about rebalancing for once. Let's have more of these in the future. That's it for me today. Go out there and break the sound barrier, and tell it that Fish sent you.